What did you think of just Calus's story in general? Do you think they wrapped up well? I think I was pretty happy with it. I think some people kind of said it seemed a bit lackluster for how long we've known the character, but honestly, I feel like it's about as best as they could have done. Like, he wasn't going to be a raid boss, he was going to be a campaign boss. Like, sure, I mean, Calus is probably one of my favorite characters. He's just a funny, entertaining character. But I feel like they did about about maybe the boss fight could have been a bit more exciting, and his final form of being this disciple could have been a bit more interesting. But I think, he was such a long running character, and he's such a one second he's your ally, and next second he's your enemy, and then he's being reborn as his disciple. I think I would have loved to see more of him, and especially more cutscenes for sure. Never get tired of a Calus cutscene. But what do you think about his story arc? Do you think they paid him off well? Do you think it's job well done?
I think that as far as looking at the overall story arc, it's totally fine. Like, yeah, they do a decent job of it. But if you're looking at Lightfall on its own, again, I wish there had been a little bit more. I would have loved to have seen a moment where, when Keitel rescues us from Calus's ship, her and her father go into some hand-to-hand proper Cabal combat. Like, I would have loved to get...
Did we?
Yeah, I really wanted to get more of a dynamic between the two of them, because in this narrative, you can't have one without the other. They define each other's character because they are so interlinked. Calus never gets exiled without Keitel's actions, and Keitel never sits there and has this burden of leadership on her shoulders without the influence of her father. There is a moment at which those characters got intrinsically tied together, and I would have loved to see more of this stuff get expanded on. It's the fundamental problem, I think, with looking at Lightfall on its own. Like, it's an amazing wrap up to a 5 or 6 year long story of this character, but it could have delivered a little bit better with all of that. I will sit there and I will say, though, there are some really stellar moments with Calus. Watching him be absolutely terrified of the Witness was definitely something that contributed to it. Understanding his place and knowing the lore from the Collector's Edition too, and how that weaves in, all really good. It does make me wish that some of that Collector's Edition lore had been brought forward more into Calus's story, because it's clear that there is this potential regret, and there's some stuff in Calus's past that is still affecting him up until the moment at which he dies.
And
I just wish that, particularly considering that it could probably pertains to Keitel's mother, we don't know for sure, but considering that it probably pertains to Keitel's mother, who is the one that he seemingly truly loved, it's one of these moments at which you could have actually expanded upon that character and given them some real depth. That last moment where Calus dies, he cries out a name, and we don't know that this is Keitel's mother's name for sure, but it certainly seems like it could be. It seems like a very Cabal name. It seems as though it's a feminine Cabal name. We've never heard them before. We don't know of Keitel's mother's name. And in your last moments, what do you think of? When it was Rolk, he is totally obsessed with the Witness, and he was like, Witness, forgive me. And in Calus's last moments, he's not thinking about the Witness at all. He's thinking about whoever Kameli is.
And his regrets, yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of, you could have had a really, really deep dive into that with the kind of narrative between Keitel and Calus, and I would have loved to see that. Because, that's the basis of their entire opposition. If you read the Collector's Edition, sorry, a little rant. If you read the Collector's Edition, Calus explaining that he felt like he couldn't go and return to Keitel's mother, and that there were all sorts of things going on in the background to do with Cabal politics and a whole bunch of things. That is the entire basis for Keitel choosing to oppose him in the Midnight Coup, because at the time being, she doesn't believe him. Her words, and you'll need to... I'll do this myself, but, she says in her journal entry on it, today I learned my father is full of... it's one of those moments at which she sits there and gives a very honest opinion, and she doesn't believe him at the time, but it's very clear that Calus actually does believe himself. He is sitting there and is feeling a lot of pain over a love that was lost. And expanding on that and trying to understand where the good in Calus could have been and how it drew him into that dark path might have been a really strong way to go about the story. There's a lot of potential for some dignity in a villain's death, and for it to be the kind of melancholy moment between Keitel and her father at the end as she sees his corpse, you know, like that could have been really powerful. Also, it doesn't help that Nimbus then comes along and they're all like, hey, wow, your dead dad is real ugly. And it's like,
that was just like, and a fist bump. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, that was a very, very cringe moment.
Here's the thing too, Nimbus, I understand their place as a character, and I'm actually okay with them being a part of the narrative. I think it's actually kind of important to have someone that does provide relief, because if it's all grimdark, then, you know, there's nothing to remind you what to fight for. It's one of the most important principles of Star Wars, and even a grimdark universe like 40k, you know? Like, Cadia can get destroyed, but the important point is that when you come to the next era of everything, there is still hope, you know? Like, Robuta Gilliman getting revived and all that nonsense. Totally different universe, but you get my point. Like, hope needs to exist alongside the grim darkness. But the way that that particular scene was inserted, I think, does Nimbus a huge disservice.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, like, they have the potential to be a really impactful character, and I feel like that was a moment that got squandered. It just felt so out of place. Like, what are we doing? Like,
tone deaf.
I totally tone deaf.
Very much to this big, like, epic moment, and yeah, I just wasn't a fan of Nimbus's dialogue. I just never want to hear a character say the word vibes in like a video game. It just seems kind of just like,
oh gosh,
a Twitter teenager talking. It just seems a bit just like, why are you talking like a Twitter teenager? Like, this is not again, this is supposed to be a serious moment, and you're like, the comic relief just wasn't. I get the intention, but it didn't deliver well. But yeah, I mean, with Calus, I think the his kind of character development, it was consistent, because he's this gluttonous, greedy, kind of selfish emperor, and then he kind of, it was good to see the dynamic between him and the Witness, because the Witness is just this like stoic, just all-knowing, just unwavering, just whatever it and they are. It seems to be like a collection of like multiple people and multiple voices, but I'm sure we'll find that out in final shape. But the you see Calus he just becomes like a bit of a failure and just a bit of an embarrassment. He's like, yeah, no, I'm trying. It's like a boss, and it's like his it's like a supervisor and his boss. And he's like, you need to find the veil. He's like, yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm gonna find it. And then he's just like, you found the veil. Like, the Witness doesn't mince words. It's just like, update, like, where's the veil?
Progress.
And Calus is like, yeah, so it did this thing, and he's just like trying to like all these words. He's just like, let me know when you find the veil. Like, don't disappoint me. And he's just like, yeah, I will. So it's just like the dynamic. It really makes Calus seem like just kind of worthless, which is kind of funny. But it's his nature. You know, he's greedy and he doesn't really care, and he's kind of selfish. It was a funny dynamic.
Really self-aggrandizing. Calus in that moment is like the meme of a book report that you're reading out loud to your teacher, where it's like, this must be 500 words long, and the first 50 words are, in today's book report, I will read my book report on the book that I have chosen to write about in my book report. The book of my book report is Great Expectations. It's just like,
the Witness is just there, just looking, just like...
Yeah. Oh, dude, whatever you want to say about it, Witness was excellent in this expansion. Not just because of great story, but also there is an excellent meme of the moment before the Witness gets incredibly angry.
Yeah, when he's just like...
it's got that look on its face, and it's just like,
not impressed.
Bruh, what are you doing?
Not impressed.
It's like the best little bit of memeage that's come out of it. A reaction gif that I need to have someone recreate as like,
yeah, that instantly became a meme.
art.
I saw that around a lot.
So good.